Quotation. Diop goes on, for all the writers who preceded, I told you history, two histories, writers who preceded, who came before, they had a different take, but they were eyewitnesses. And then writers who came after, they tampered with history. For all the writers who preceded the ridiculous and vicious falsification of modern Egyptology, and the contemporaries of the ancient Egyptians, Herodotus, Aristotle, Diodorus, Strabo, and others, the black identity of the Egyptian was an evident fact that stood before their eyes, so obvious fact that it would have been superfluous to try to demonstrate it. Civilization or Barbarism, page 1. Check Anta Diop, African anthropologist, African Egyptologist. Another historian, Count Constantine Divorny, he went to Egypt himself. He also went to Egypt following the course of Herodotus. He was a historian. Count Constantine Divorny, a great French historian, went to Egypt between 1783 and 1785. He went to see things with his own eyes. Count Divorny went up to the Sphinx of Giza and took a look at that beautiful face, serene and full of wisdom. He was looking at a part of African family picture album. Return to Glory, page 23. The historian had also seen living examples of Africans in his own lifetime. So, as he raised his eyes to gaze upon the great Sphinx, he thought and later wrote, on seeing that head, typically Negro in all its features, I remember the remarkable passage of Herodotus. The ancient Egyptians were true Negroes of the same type as all native-born Africans. After commenting in the same passage on the brilliant mind of the Greeks and the genuineness of the Egyptians, he continues, just think that this race of black men today are slave and the object of scorn, the very race to which we owe our arts, science, and even the use of speech. Somebody didn't tell us the truth. Somebody trying to hide some truth so they can trample upon us. Return to Glory, page 24. So the fact that the Egyptians were black is what? Indisputable. Herodotus gave an eyewitness account of their identity. But apart from that, we know the Egyptians were black African people because modern Africans still carry the family names of Egyptian kings, such as King Tut. You've heard that name? His actual name was King Tutu Ankamon. Tutu Ankamin. That's how the Greeks, white folks pronounce it. And this is no offense to anybody, white folks have not been able to pronounce African sounds or names right. And that's a fact. They butcher it and maintain the butchering of it as the norm. So you tell them the name, they call it, and they write. And so they will put it on paper. And when you see that, you are not really seeing the original sound of the African name, you are seeing the transposition of the African name. It has gone through Greek mind, Greek letters, and then it appears a certain way. But the original African sound of King Tut, which is King Tutu Ankamon, and Tutu Ankamon is an African name right now. It's a name that is used in Africa. You know Tutu, Bishop Tutu, African, carrying the name of ancient Egyptian kings. And in Ghana we had Osei Tutu, Ashanti king. Osei Tutu, Bishop Tutu, and then another name, King Kufu. You heard that name also? Yeah, King Kufu. My name is what? Dufu. You saw it. And we have in Ghana we have name like Akufo, and we have Kufuor. These are all names that are and Kufu. These are all names that are still carried by the descendants of Egyptians. But you know what they did in history? In order not, because they don't want to give the credit to black folks, they said that all the Egyptians are extinct. You haven't heard that before? The ancient Egyptians are extinct. How can they be extinct when their descendants are walking on the continent of Africa carrying their names? Because they don't want to give credit to black folks. The Egyptians are extinct. How can they be extinct? Israelites are walking about here. And they interacted with these Israelites and then all of a sudden, boom, Israelites are here, and all the people that Israelites dealt with are all gone out of history. No, sir. Somebody's not telling us the truth. Talking about names. This is quoted from Dakwa in his book. His book is funny. The Africans Who Wrote the Bible. That's the title of his book. But that's not my emphasis. Page 203. He says, even the word Mesopotamia, where all this started, is a Western name given to that geographical region. But it has an Akan prefix, Mesonpo, meaning I am carrying the sea. Mesopotamia. Mesopo is an Akan word. Now let's deal with linguistics. We are still on the names and the various linguistical aspects of Egyptians. The ancient Egyptian priest Menathu, and I'm quoting from the same book, page 202. Menathu, who wrote the most credible history of ancient Egypt, is Omani Anto. This is the African name. Original African name, sound. And the Akan name of the god Osiris Kentimantu is Osoro Kantamanto. If you become a missionary, you go to Ghana, ask them to take you to Kantamanto market in Accra right now. It's in Accra. Or go to the internet and put in the word, go to Ghana's website and put in the word Kantamanto. And it's a market in Ghana right now. And this was a name of a god in Egypt. Same name, same, carrying the same. The Akan name for the most famous ancient Egyptian city, Memphis, is Manfe. Manfe is also a name of a city in Ghana right now. They say Egyptians are extinct. To the modern descendants of the ancient Egyptians, these names are not extinct. They are still used and they can be found today in Akan people's dynasties, names of peoples and places, page 202. So if the descendant, and I'm making a point very important, we're going to take off from here. If the descendants of Ham were black, historians, linguistics, all of that, in general, and Egyptians were black, as has been described, in particular, then indeed the Israelites, this is where we're making the important point, then the Israelites could not have been white. Now, that's a serious point. We're going to now go in Bible and trace our way. If the Hamites were black, and somebody even has said the Shemites were black, but even if you don't take that, but if we establish the fact, which is indisputable, that the Egyptians were black in particular, Ethiopians were black in particular, then the Israelites could not have been white. Is that clear with you so far? And that's a very important point. And we're going to go in there to see. The Israelites had to look very much like their Egyptian brothers in particular and Hamites in general. They all had one common identity and also intermixing. Everywhere you turn, an Israelite is marrying either an Egyptian or Ethiopian. And you saying that they were so different in color that you would think that Sarah asking Abraham to marry or to, not marry, but to have a baby by Hagar, Egyptian, so that the culture, Hagar's baby will become Sarah's baby because Hagar was a servant of Sarah. And Sarah couldn't see any color difference. White and black. Oh, come on. Somebody's not telling us the truth. Let's start with Abraham, the father of the Jews. Genesis 11:27 says, all of the Chaldeans was Abraham's native country. of the Chaldeans was his home country, hometown, which means that Abraham was no different from the Hamitic black Chaldeans. What set Abraham apart was not his color, but his faith. Are you with me, somebody? He was every way similar to the people of his nativity. The off is not there. Both the Shemites and the Hamites were all dark-skinned people. And I'll give you support for what I'm talking. How about Joseph? Black or white? Hollywood said is white. Traditional painting make them white. Let's look at the records. Here you have a supposedly white boy in black Egyptian government. His own brother, supposedly white, come to buy corn from him. They have audience with him for many occasions and could not recognize him. They could not identify their own white brother from among black Egyptians. Something is fishy. Something is really fishy. Somebody is not telling us the truth. We have established that the Egyptians were black. Eyewitness account. You go fight with Herodotus. I'm not going back there. He said, and he described them. If he hadn't seen the people like that, he couldn't describe big nose and all those. Where did he get it from? If he hadn't seen them. And it was history that was written 475 BC, long time ago. So he has established the color of the Egyptians and Ethiopians. Dark-skinned people. My point is, if those were dark-skinned people, the Israelite could never be white. And if that's the case, you have Joseph. His own brothers come stand before him, white boy, official in black Egyptian government. That's like telling me that you went to the White House and you could not differentiate Colin Powell from George Bush. That's what is going on here. His own brothers come to buy corn from him. They talk to him. And they went back to their father and reported that, that Egyptian official is troubling us. Egyptian? Your own brother? Supposed to be white? You supposed to be white? They supposed to be black? Oh, something is fishy, sister. So and I'm just using this picture, the contrast. Egyptians black, Israelites white. Of course, this is supposed to tell us Ethiopian eunuch and Philip, same thing. Ethiopian, same color, supposed to be, but then they say Philip was white. The same back then, Israel, Egypt, same thing. This is what they're telling us. This does not stand to the scrutiny of history. Impossibility. If Israelites were white and the Egyptians were black, it would have been impossible not to have recognized their white brother from among black Egyptians. Apparently, there was no color difference. We can establish that fact. Amen? At least we can establish the fact that there was no color difference between the Israelites and the Egyptians. Are you with me so far? And we know that the Egyptians were what? That's Herodotus. So both the Egyptians and the Israelites must have been dark-skinned people. Does that make sense to you? But we're not finished. What about Moses? First, Pharaoh's decree was that all male children of Israel should die.